You have 340 in your checking account. Not 340,000, not 34,000, $340, and it's the 11th of the month and rent already left. You know the number without opening the app because you always know the number. That's what being broke actually is, not the absence of money. The constant, low-grade awareness of exactly how little of it you have. You rent. You've always rented. Every first of the month you wire $1,000-something to a man you've never met, and that money is gone the way water is gone once it hits the drain. You are paying off a building you will never own, for a landlord who once heard the thing nobody told you. So picture your life as a game. There's a counter in the corner of the screen, and it doesn't show your health or your score. It shows your net worth. Right now it reads 0. Below 0, honestly, if you're fair about the student loans. The whole game is one long climb from that 0 up to a number that feels made up when you say it out loud. $500 million, $500 million in real estate held in your name. Here's the part nobody tells you. Almost no one clears level 1. Not because they're stupid, because they believe the lie, and the lie is elegant. You need money to make money. You've heard it your whole life from people who never made any. It's the sentence that keeps the gate locked, and the gate stays locked because everyone standing in front of it agrees it should. The truth is smaller and stranger. You don't need money. You need one door. One single door with a lock you control, and a bank willing to bet on you actually living behind it. That's the whole cheat code for level 1, and the fact that it sounds too simple is exactly why the line to use it is so short. So stop looking at the 340 like it's the problem. It's the coin you drop into the machine to start the game. By the end of this, you hold $500 million in real estate. And you'll know, floor by floor, exactly what each level took from you to unlock the next. Level 1 is a locked gate. Let's pick it. The key isn't cash. It's a loan almost nobody in your life has bothered to understand. It's called an FHA loan, and it exists because the government would rather you own than rent. Here's what it does. It lets you buy a home with 3.5% down instead of the 20% everyone assumes you need. On a $300,000 property, that's not 60 grand. That's a little over 10. You need a credit score around 580 or better, which is not good credit. It's just not wrecked credit. And you have to actually live in the place for at least 12 months. That last part isn't a technicality. It's the whole trick. Because here's the move nobody at your job is making. The FHA loan works on 2 to 4 unit properties. A duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. You're allowed to buy a small apartment building, live in one unit, and rent out the others, and the bank treats it as your home because you're standing inside it. So you find it, a tired brick triplex on a street your coworkers would call rough. Peeling trim. A water stain shaped like a country nobody's named. 3 units, one of them empty and smelling of old cigarettes, 2 of them with tenants already paying rent the day you get the keys. The list price is $310,000 and your hands are sweating on the pen. Now watch what the bank does, because this is the part that breaks the whole you need money lie in half. When they decide how big a loan you qualify for, they don't just look at your paycheck. They count roughly 75% of the rent those other units will bring in as your income. Not all of it, because they know things break, but most of it. Suddenly you, the person with 340 last month, qualify for a building because the building helps pay for itself. You move in, 2 tenants send you rent on the first. That money that used to disappear down someone else's drain, now lands in your account and walks straight over to the mortgage. Do the math slowly, because it's the best math you'll ever do. Their 2 checks cover almost the entire payment. Your actual cost to live there drops to a couple $100s a month. Some months, once the empty unit fills, it drops to nothing. Some months the building pays you to live in it. Your neighbors think you settled. Poor guy, couldn't swing a real house, bought half a slum on the wrong side of the tracks. You let them think it, because you're not looking at a starter home. You're looking at a machine that eats other people's rent and quietly pays down a loan with your name on it, and every month that loan gets smaller while the building most years gets worth more. That gap between what you owe and what it's worth has a name. Equity, and it's yours, growing in the dark while you sleep, funded by tenants who think they're just paying rent. 12 months in, something has permanently changed, and it isn't the number in your account. It's that you now control an asset instead of just renting out your hours. A paycheck stops the day you do. A building doesn't. Level 1 cleared, the gates open, and you already see the next one. Because the FHA rule cuts both ways. You only have to live there 12 months. After that, you're free to leave, keep the triplex rented, and do the whole thing again. So you do. Month 13, you buy a second small building, 3.5% down, move into one unit, and the first triplex, now fully occupied, stops being your home and becomes purely an investment. You've cleared the gate twice with the same key, but there's a bigger loop hiding underneath this one, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Investors call it BRRRR. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's the engine that turns one down payment into an infinite number of them. Here's how it turns. You stop buying places that are merely tired and start hunting the ones that are ugly. The house with the collapsed porch and the yard full of somebody's abandoned life, the one everyone scrolls past, the one you can buy cheap precisely because no one else will touch it. You buy it. That's the first B, then you rehab it, and this is not decoration, this is surgery. New kitchen, new floors, fix the bones. You're not spending money to make it pretty. You're spending money to force its value up on purpose with your own hands and a contractor's invoice. Say you buy it for $180,000, put $40,000 of work into it, and now it appraises for $290,000. You didn't wait for the market to hand you that gain. You built it, then you rent it out, and now the property has a paycheck of its own. Now the letter that changes your life. Refinance. You go back to a bank and do a cash-out refinance on the new, higher value. And here's the part that feels almost illegal the first time. There's a kind of loan called a DSCR loan, and it doesn't care about your W-2 at all. It qualifies on the property's rent. The building applies for its own mortgage, on its own income, and passes. The bank hands you a new loan against that $290,000 value. You clear the original purchase and the rehab, and there's money left over. Your money, the down payment and the renovation cash, back in your pocket. Roughly the same 30 grand you started with, returned to you, while you still own the house and still collect the rent. Then the last R repeat. You drop that same 30,000 into the next ugly house. And the next. The exact same dollars, cycling through deal after deal, each one leaving behind a rented, refinanced property with your name on the deed. This is the secret the whole game runs on, and almost nobody says it plainly. It was never about how much money you have. It's about how fast it moves. Velocity beats amount. A patient man with $100,000 sitting still gets lapped by you, recycling 30 grand 4 times a year. Money that never stops moving does the work of money you don't have. And somewhere in here, without deciding to, you stop thinking in dollars and start thinking in doors. Not I have 90 grand of equity, but I have 11 doors. 11 locks you control, 11 households paying down loans with your name on them. But the loop takes something too. The rehabs eat your weekends whole. You spend Saturdays smelling like drywall dust and Sundays on the phone with a contractor who's ghosting you. The people who love you start asking gently at first when you're going to be around again. You tell them soon. You're not sure you mean it. Every door you add is a door between you and them, and you're not counting those doors yet. 11 doors, 15. Then you look up one day and it's 20, and 20 doors is not a hobby anymore. It's a business you have not yet learned how to run. Level 2 cleared. The next one isn't about buying. It's about becoming someone who can hold what he's bought. 20 doors breaks you before it makes you. The phone rings at 2 a.m. because a water heater died in Unit 6. It rings at dinner because someone's rent is late again. You are the plumber, the bookkeeper, the guy who chases checks and shows apartments on his one free Saturday. You bought freedom and somehow built yourself a second job with worse hours. This is the wall almost every landlord dies against. They confuse owning the buildings with running them, and running them buries them, so they stop at 10 doors exhausted and call it a portfolio. You do the opposite. You fire yourself from the only job you were never supposed to keep. You hire a property manager. They take 8 to 10% of the rent, and the first month it stings because that's money that used to be yours. But watch what you bought with it. The 2 a.m. call now goes to them. The late rent, the showings, the leaky faucet, the lease paperwork, all of it, theirs. You've replaced yourself holding a plunger with a system, and a system doesn't get tired and doesn't resent you. You've crossed the line from side hustle landlord to operator. You own the machine now instead of being it. And now that you're operating instead of sweating, you can finally see the thing that makes real wealth in this business. It doesn't live in single-family houses. It lives in the way small apartment buildings are priced. Your triplex was worth whatever the house down the street sold for. Comparables. What some buyer felt on a Sunday, but a real multifamily building, 5 units, 10, 20, isn't priced on feelings. It's priced on math. Its value is its net operating income divided by a cap rate. Say that slowly because it's the whole game. Net operating income, the money the building keeps after expenses, divided by the cap rate, the return buyers in your market expect. That's the price. Which means the value is a lever and you're holding it. Because you don't have to wait for a market to lift you. Push the rents up $80 a unit across 20 units. Cut the water bill by submetering, shop the insurance, kill the wasteful service contract the old owner never questioned. Every dollar you add to net operating income or subtract from expenses gets multiplied. At a 6% cap rate, $1 of new annual income adds $16 to the building's value. Raise the net income by 20 grand a year, and you didn't just make 20 grand. You made the building worth $300,000 more. Out of thin air. Investors have a name for this, the most beautiful phrase in real estate. Forced equity. You forced it. The market had no vote. And the money the building throws off? On paper, the government barely taxes it because of a gift called depreciation. The tax code pretends your building is slowly wearing out and lets you deduct that phantom decline every year, sheltering the rental income even as the real building goes up in value. You collect cash, the paper says you lost money, and you pay tax on almost none of it. It's legal, it's intended, and once you understand it, you stop wondering how the wealthy pay so little. So you force the value up, then refinance, and pull the new equity out tax-free because a loan isn't income. Fresh capital without selling a thing. And then comes the strangest moment yet. It's a Tuesday. You're somewhere ordinary, a park, a coffee shop, your kid's game you finally made it to. Rent hit your accounts this morning, and you didn't lift a finger for it. The manager handled the vacancy. The machine spun without you touching it. You wait to feel triumphant, and instead what arrives is something quieter. The freedom is real. It's just far less loud than you imagined. Nobody claps. It's just a Tuesday, and you're free, and the only sound is the coffee. Level 3, cleared. And in the quiet, you start to feel the ceiling of doing this alone. Because there's a hard ceiling on what your own money and credit can carry, and you're pressing your head against it. You can force equity all day, but a single person, even a rich one, tops out. The next building you want is a 12 million, 100-unit complex, and you cannot buy that alone. Nobody can. And that's not a wall, it's a door, and behind it is the way the truly big money has always been made. Other people's money. The industry word is syndication, and it just means a group of people pooling capital to buy something none of them could buy alone. But there are two seats at that table, and the difference between them is the difference between comfortable and rich. You take the first seat before you're ready for the second. You come in as an LP, a limited partner. That means you're passive. You write a check, 100 grand into someone else's deal, and then you do nothing but watch. Somebody else found the building, somebody else runs it, and you earn what's called a preferred return. Say 8%. And here's the word that matters most, preferred, because it means you get paid first. Before the person running the deal sees a single dollar of profit, you get your 8% off the top. First in line for the money, last in line for the headaches. And while you sit in that passive seat, collecting checks, you're doing the thing most investors never think to do. You're learning the deal from the inside. You watch how the sponsor raised the money, how they structured the loan, how they handled the month the numbers came in soft. You're paying tuition and getting a dividend at the same time. You're not just an investor, you're an apprentice with a paycheck. Then, when you've seen enough, you stand up and walk around to the other side of the table. You become the GP, the general partner, the sponsor. The one who runs the whole thing now. Now you're the one who finds the deal. You arrange the senior debt, the big loan from the bank that covers 60 to 70% of the purchase price. You raise the rest, the equity from LPs, from people sitting exactly where you used to sit, writing you the checks you used to write someone else. You put in maybe 5 to 10% of the equity yourself, real skin in the game, and in exchange you run the entire asset and earn fees for doing it, plus the lion's share of the upside. Sit with that flip, because it's the whole level. As an LP, you were the gambler, putting your chips down and hoping the house paid out. As a GP, you're the house, a cut for finding the deal, a cut for running it, a cut of the profit, and you did it largely with capital that wasn't yours. The game stopped being about how much you can bet and became about how well you can run the table. But nobody hands you that seat. You earn it with your signature, and the first time is the one you'll remember for the rest of your life. You're in a title company conference room that smells like burnt coffee and toner. In front of you is a stack of documents, and on one of them is a loan. $12 million, your name on the line. Not the funds, not some partners. Yours. You've closed 100 deals, you know these numbers cold, and still, when you touch the pen to the paper, your hand shakes. The pen actually trembles for a second before it moves. You sign anyway. That's the whole thing. That's the entire difference between the people on this level and the millions frozen just outside it. Most people never sign. The number is too big, the fear too loud, and they stay small and safe and comfortable and never ever get here. You felt exactly the same fear, you just signed through it. Level 4, cleared. And now that you're the house, you're about to learn how the house actually gets rich. The fees are nice, but they're not where the money is. The money is in a structure called the waterfall, and it's the most important word left in this whole climb. Picture the profits from a deal as water poured from the top, filling a series of buckets on their way down. The first bucket belongs to your LPs. Remember their preferred return? That 8%? That bucket fills completely first. Your investors get their 8% before you, the sponsor, touch a single dollar. That's what keeps them trusting you. But once that first bucket is full, the water keeps pouring, and now it hits the tiers, and the tiers are where you get rich. This is called the promote, your outsized share of the profits above the preferred return. Watch how it stacks. Up to a 12% return for your investors, the profit splits 70-30. 70 to them, 30 to you. Push the deal harder, and from 12 up to 18%, the split shifts 60-40. Get the deal performing above 18%, truly hitting it out of the park, and now it's 50-50. Half the profit, to you, the sponsor who put in a fraction of the money. Read that structure again and notice what it does to you. The harder the deal performs, the bigger your slice gets. You don't get rich by squeezing your investors. You get rich by making them richer, because every tier that rewards you rewards them first. Your greed and their interest point in exactly the same direction. That's not a loophole. It's the most elegant alignment in all of finance, and it's why the biggest fortunes in real estate are built this way. So you go hunting for deals that can hit those top tiers, and you know exactly what to buy. A tired 200-unit apartment complex. Brown carpet, dated kitchens, rents $200 a month under what the neighborhood will pay. Run for decades by an owner who stopped caring. You buy it with your LP's money and the bank's. Then you do at scale exactly what you learned on that first ugly house. You renovate, unit by unit, as tenants turn over, and push the rents up to what the market always would have paid. Every renovated unit lifts the net operating income. And remember the lever, every dollar of that income gets multiplied against the cap rate. Force the rents up across 200 units, and you don't add thousands of dollars of value. You add millions, then you refinance into that forced equity, or you sell and everyone walks away paid. And when you sell, there's one last piece of the code, the one that lets the truly wealthy compound untouched for decades. Normally, when you sell for a huge gain, the government takes a fat slice in capital gains tax. But there's a rule, a 1031 exchange, and it says if you roll every dollar of that gain straight into a bigger property, you owe the tax not now, but later. And you can do it again, and again. Roll the gain from the 200 unit into a 400 unit, from the 400 into an 800, deferring at every step, keeping 100% of your equity working instead of 80. Investors call it swap till you drop, because if you never stop trading up, the tax bill keeps getting pushed down the road until, one day, it's someone else's problem entirely. Your money compounds whole, undivided for the rest of your life. And somewhere in the middle of all this leverage and all these tiers, the numbers change texture on you. You're not managing units anymore. You're managing homes. Thousands of them. The zeros on the deals got so large they stopped registering as money. And what fills the space where the excitement used to be is heavier and quieter. Thousands of families sleep tonight inside walls you're responsible for. The kid doing homework in 4B, the nurse coming off a double in 12C, the old man who's lived in Unit 7 for 30 years. The zeros stopped feeling like a score and started feeling like weight. And you're not sure anyone warned you that winning would feel this much like being needed. Level 5, cleared. There's only one level left, and on it you stop buying buildings entirely. You stop buying buildings because you've realized you can make them instead. This is the top of the game, and it has a name that sounds almost too simple for what it is. Ground-up development. You stop paying other people for finished buildings and their built-in premium, and you start with dirt. Raw land at the edge of a growing city, a field, a parking lot, a forgotten industrial lot nobody else can see anything in. You buy the dirt cheap because dirt is just dirt, and then you create the value that everyone before you had been buying, out of nothing but a plan, a permit, a crew, and 18 months of nerve. The building that stands there when you're done didn't exist. You didn't find the value, you summoned it, every other level moved value around. This one manufactures it, and now something happens that tells you the game has fully changed. The phone calls invert. You used to chase money, hat in hand, begging LPs for $100,000 checks. Now the money chases you. Institutional capital, the largest pools of money on earth, calls your office. Pension funds sitting on the retirement savings of teachers and firefighters. Insurance companies holding oceans of premiums. They need somewhere safe and productive to put billions, and they want in on what you build. They become your LPs now, and they don't write $100,000 checks. They write 9-figure ones, and that's how the counter in the corner of the screen finally rolls over to the number that once sounded made up. $500 million in assets under management. Say it plainly because the honesty matters. Most of that $500 million is other people's money, pension money, insurance money, LP money, and that's not the asterisk on the achievement. That's the achievement. That's the entire skill. You've become trusted enough to be handed the largest pools of capital in the world and told, grow this. Your own slice of that empire is still enormous, life-changing many times over, but it sits on a mountain built mostly of borrowed and entrusted billions, and that is exactly what mastery looks like at this altitude. You're not a landlord anymore. You barely resemble the guy with the plunger. You sit on top of a full stack now. A management company that runs the buildings. An acquisitions team that hunts the deals you used to hunt alone on Saturdays. Analysts, attorneys, a construction arm. Your name, the same name that shook holding a pen over a $12 million loan, now gets phone calls returned within the hour. Deals come to you before they ever hit the market because being you is now its own kind of asset. The flywheel you spent 20 years pushing spins entirely on its own, and your job is mostly to point it. And it all traces back, every last dollar of it, in one unbroken line, to a 340 checking account and a single FHA loan on a tired triplex on a street your neighbors pitied. That's not a rags to riches flourish. That's the literal mechanical truth of it. Level 6 was unlocked by level 5, which was unlocked by level 4, all the way down the chain to the empty unit that smelled of old cigarettes and the 2 tenants who paid your mortgage while you slept. Not one level skipped, not one bought with luck. Each one was the only key that fit the next lock. Level 6, cleared. The counter reads $500 million. You reach the top, and now standing on it, you finally have the quiet to ask what the whole climb actually cost. Go back to the beginning, the locked gate. The 340 the 11th of the month, the rent already gone down someone else's drain. You stood outside a gate you were sure was built to keep people like you out. Now you own the gate, and 100 like it. And the strangest part is what an ordinary Tuesday looks like on the other side of it. You drive a boring car, paid off, the kind nobody looks at twice. Your watch tells time and nothing else. No one in line for coffee would ever guess the number on the counter. Here's the paradox this channel keeps circling back to, and you're living inside it now. The richest version of you is the quietest one. All that money didn't buy a louder life. It bought a silent one. The freedom to be unremarkable, to disappear, to never again know your exact balance on the 11th of the month. The empire bought quiet. It was never going to buy noise, because the people still buying noise never actually cleared the gate. And here's the real lesson, stated as plainly as it can be. Not one level was a lottery ticket. Every single one was a system. House hack into an asset with 3.5% down. Force equity with your own hands instead of praying for the market. Recycle the same capital until velocity does the work of wealth you didn't have. Use other people's money to buy what your money never could. Defer the taxes and let it all compound. Repeatable, learnable, unglamorous systems stacked one on top of another. Nobody got lucky here. You just refused to stop stacking. But be honest about the cost, because there's always a cost. You could have stopped at level 3. 20 doors, a property manager, quiet rent every first of the month, your Saturdays back, the people who love you not asking anymore when you're coming home. You were free at level 3. Everything after it you didn't build because you needed the money. You built it because you couldn't put the controller down. So here's the only question that actually matters, and it isn't how far you can climb. It's how far you should. Somewhere on this ladder is the exact level where you'd have enough, and the trick nobody teaches, worth more than the FHA loan and the waterfall and the 10331 combined, is knowing which one is yours before you climb past it. Which level is actually yours? Sit with that. The gate's already unlocked.